must constantly look at things in a different way.
The Healthcare Education Transformation Podcast was created by two physical therapists out of the desire to learn more about the different educational roles in physical therapy and healthcare, and how healthcare education works by talking with educational leaders and people with different perspectives within physical therapy and across interdisciplinary lines on how education can be improved to disrupt the status quo of healthcare education. This is our journey, and thanks for listening. Are you a third-year physical therapy student that excels on tests when you have study guides, checklists, and deadlines? With all of the information available about how to prepare for the NPTE, it's easy to get disorganized and not feel prepared going into the big day. NPTE Prep Success is an online course that provides PT students easy-to-use study guides and step-by-step guidance through the NPTE preparation. To learn more, visit kylericeprep.com. Thank you again all for your continued support, and now for the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Healthcare Education Transformation Podcast. I'm your host, F. Scott Field, and I'm coming to you live from Clearwater Beach, Florida, at the SSPT Live 2019 conference. It's been a beautiful weekend, some amazing people, some amazing talks, and I'm bringing you an amazing guest today. We have on the show Stephen Dunn, the Pilates expert, the guru, the man behind the big show when it comes to Pilates. Stephen, tell us a little bit about your educational background and how it brought us to where you are today.
Yeah, well, first of all, just thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I ended up getting through physical therapy school in 1998, and I graduated with a master's program. We were the first program at LSU to have a master's. It had just switched from a bachelor's, and it was about 4 years into my career that I got exposed to Pilates. And I got exposed to Pilates from someone who had a clinic in Lake Tahoe that they were trying to sell. And they were wanting to bring someone in interested in Pilates to take it over. And that led me to find Pilates, and I signed up with a Pilates certification in LA. I was living in LA at the time. And I worked with a woman out of Santa Monica. And this was pretty early in the days of the Pilates certification, so there wasn't a real standardized way of doing things where there has become a standardized way. So she was involved with the Pilates Method Alliance at that time, but it was before the Pilates Method Alliance had become like the governing body, before it had become the standardized test. So it was a training through her. It took me about 8 months. My wife and I did it together, and after those 8 months, we started doing a little bit of building a new business with incorporating Pilates into the physical therapy and also offering wellness, because my wife's not a physical therapist, so it was a education that allowed her and I to go through something together and utilize the same skill set for my physical therapy patients, but then her utilize it for her wellness patients, which in all fairness was one and the same, because they would go from me to her.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. You've got a clinic in Austin. Tell us a little bit about the clinic and kind of how it works, the layout, the ins and outs, how you incorporate patients to PT and Pilates and back and forth. It seems like a two-way street.
It is definitely a two-way street. People will show up to see me for physical therapy because a doctor's referred them, and there's only a handful of docs that truly send me business because I'm different enough. But the doctors will certainly refer people to me, and mostly word of mouth, where they'll come to see me for back pain or neck pain or whatever injury, post-surgery, whatever. But mostly spinal is the big key. And then what ends up happening is that they see me, I end up the very first time I work with them in their assessment, I lay out the entire plan of, I'm going to see you this amount of time, I'm going to move you over to work with my trainers for this amount of time, and we're going to settle into a group class at this amount of time. And it's really like a 1 month, 2 month, 3 month thing that we're talking about. And it's kind of like a 3 month plan. And that's what I have the conversations with all of my patients day one, so that they know what they're getting into, so that I'm not looking for someone to try me once or twice to see if I'm going going to help them or not. I'm looking for someone to commit to this plan because I will tell them 1 or 2 sessions, you'll feel better, but it ain't going to solve the problem. It's not going to be the solution. So that's one way that we get people in the door, but we also get people in the door because Pilates is a very booming business right now, and people know about Pilates more than physical therapy. They know Pilates has less murkiness to it than physical therapy. There's so much out there with physical therapy that, wound care, pediatrics, inpatient rehab, there's just so broad that the common person doesn't know what that is. So people will show up to do Pilates because their doctor told them to try Pilates for back pain. Maybe that doctor that won't refer them to me for PT will then refer them to my wife for Pilates. It's really kind of funny. So they show up to see the trainers, my wife or her staff, and then that opens the door to, oh wait, you're doing this wrong. My trainers see something's physically not working correctly. The client expresses a concern, a question. I have this problem. I had this surgery. And then before you know it, my Pilates instructor says, well, you should probably go see Steven for a consult so that he can tell me how I can help you the best. It's never go see Steven, but it's always about go see Steven so we can help you, so we can figure out what you need to do. And it is a two-way street, and most people do show up for me and they end up going to Pilates, but people show up for Pilates and end up coming to me just as well. We have something called ClassPass that we're involved with. It's like a online membership site that people pay, and we're a member of ClassPass, and so anyone that pays ClassPass, they can come take a class, like 1 or 2 classes a month at our office. They can go to many places all over the country and take classes, and so people will show up from ClassPass. We get a discounted rate from ClassPass. If our class is normally $37, we might get $20 from ClassPass, but it's a new person in the door who then all of a sudden they're trying Pilates, but they end up on my schedule because they're hurting and they need more. So it comes in many, many ways.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing to educate the public as to Pilates and what it is, and then clinicians as to Pilates and what it is and how they can maybe incorporate it.
Well, with the public, a lot of our messages with our Facebook and social media, it's not so much about physical therapy. It's really not so much about Pilates. It's just about the solution and the transformation we can provide. But we tend to play up the Pilates word because it is well known, and it's again a buzzword right now. And it's one of those. It's been around for so long that people keep thinking it's a fad that's going to end, and then it's been around for 100 years, so it's not going anywhere. So we really, and we try to educate the clients that there's a difference in Pilates when you're coming from a rehab standpoint and versus someone who's doing Pilates at, let's say, a fitness boutique Pilates studio. Some of those fitness studios are very much Pilates, but some of them have kind of evolved into what we call like a CrossFit style of Pilates. And the machines are different. There's microphones. It's music. It's like a very different vibe and feel for what Pilates is about, connecting. And they're making it like, we know you're a Type A person. Let's bring Pilates to you. And we're like saying, no, Pilates is Pilates. We need to change you. We don't need to change Pilates to fit you. So we try to educate people that if they've done Pilates at certain studios in our town, then that's a totally different style of Pilates than what we're doing. And if someone's been injured in Pilates at this place, well, we have to kind of communicate to them that what we're doing is different and is coming from a space of healing, not a space of fitness to look good. So that's a big thing because people they don't really understand that difference. Now, when it comes to physical therapists, I had decided I guess it's been about a year ago now, maybe 9 months, I set up a Facebook page, and it's called Pilates for PTs is the @ for, the @ name for Facebook. And it's a page where I go on typically every Wednesday, and I do a Facebook Live, and I just share some information, whether it's like a win I had in the studio that week, a way I found a patient from social media, the way I found a patient from YouTube, an email that I sent out that had some success, how to get certified in Pilates, just whatever questions I'm getting from people in this group, it becomes a content place to create more information. And so I'm at a point where I want to teach other physical therapists how they can incorporate Pilates into their practice so that they can create a wellness program, a new revenue source. They can keep people around their studio, their clinic for years instead of discharging people and waiting for them to get injured again, hoping they remember you to come back for PT. So it's a very different flow and concept.
Sure. So let's talk about that a little bit. How do you plan to educate these physical therapists and these healthcare practitioners who are interested in Pilates or adding Pilates to their services? What is coming down the pipeline from you?
Well, it's interesting you asked that because I've been asked so many questions really for like, we've been open in Austin since 2005, and that's really where we started our Pilates thing. I've been asked so many questions by so many people for so many years that I've answered them as much as I can, but what I've decided to do is put it all into one organized place, and I've created an online course that I'm going to teach people what we've done and how we've done it, and it's a process of this is what you need to do to get certified, this is what the definitions are, this is what you need to do to get people in the door, this is the forms you need, this is the cost. And so instead of trying to answer people's questions in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, which is usually all the time I truly have, maybe I get 30 minutes on the phone with someone if I'm lucky, but it's really a place where it's everything that I've learned over all these years in one organized place that people can take it and learn it. And we'll have a Facebook group for these people that they can ask questions to me and get answers at all time. And it's a way to take what I've learned from all of my mentors and let me get my niche out to the people. And whoever's interested in Pilates, it's a way to take your practice to a different level. And it's not necessarily about this financial level. Yes, we're doing really well right now, but it's a level that people trust you because you're spending time with them, you're focused on them. My patients don't care that I don't take insurance because of the way I listen to them, the way I engage them, the way we treat them, the way my dog runs up to them and licks them when they walk in the door. So all these little things. So it's really a place where I've learned the best. I graduated a long time ago in 98, and I never had online courses or online things as an option. And 4 years ago, I started studying online, and it was quite a game changer for me. And everything that I've had success with over the last 4 years since I've gone cash, 3.5, has been based on what I've learned in online courses. So I figured, hey, it's time to get what I've been doing into that place, into that field, because now if someone asks me questions, I'll be glad to answer them, and I'll be glad to do a call with them and talk to them and give them answers for free. But the detail and the amount of information in that organized place is what is really, that's what I need. So I'm just taking what helped me, and I'm now creating ways for other people to learn from that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And where can people find that if they're interested?
Yeah, so the website is going to be the DunnMethod.com, and we're going to have some.
And that's your last name, Dunn.
That's right.
D-U-N-N, right?
D-U-N-N, that's right. And we're going to have through that website a couple of different options. The first option is going to be this course. There'll be some other products coming, but that's the first one. So, and if anyone is interested in that Facebook group, it's www.facebook.com/Pilates for PTs, and that's going to be that's the name of the course, Pilates for PTs.
Awesome. Well, Stephen, we like to ask every one of our guests this final question. If you could change one aspect of higher education, whether it be the DPT or otherwise related, what aspect would you change, and how would you change it?
That's a fantastic question that I've not thought about at all. And looking at the way things are done now, I think that professors are great. You and I just talked about my old professor before we started this, who influenced me, Bob Rowe. Give it up, Bob Rowe.
Yeah.
And I
previous guest on this.
and he really influenced me to learn manual manual therapy. But what I didn't get in PT school was anyone who had great clinical experience of running a business. Bob Rowe worked there at the clinic on campus and saw the hockey players and saw people. So, I saw him treating people, but it was different than someone who ran a business. So I would love to, if I was in PT school, I would want to learn from people who are doing it, not just people who are teaching, but people who are actually out there doing it and have had success doing it and doing it in different ways, not just the traditional route. Because you might teach, like I know in Miami, for example, you can get a Pilates elective in PT school. So you can come out of PT school with a DPT, but also have a certification in Pilates. That's awesome, and I think that should be at every PT school, and not just Pilates, other types of things, so that people can learn that your DPT is great, and I have a master's, but if you can learn some other things, you can be a lot more successful. And the reality is my wife paid $3,000 for a Pilates education that she now charges $127 an hour. She's charging more than some of the PTs I've heard in this course that are telling me that they're charging $100, $120. So from a $3,000 education, she has a full degree from LSU in marketing. She does nothing with it, zero. And she's got a $3,000 Pilates education that she now charges $127 an hour, charges $5,000 for a full certification off of something that we never thought that training that she did with me would have snowballed into that. So practical experience, and I know that's something you're passionate about from our relationship. So
yeah, you bring up so many good points there to kind of unravel. So I'll try to take them one at a time. But one of the issues that we've heard about on this show time and time again is that disconnect from the ivory tower of academia to what's actually going on in the clinic, and whether that be clinical hands-on skills or whether it be business skills, there is that disconnect between academicians who haven't treated in many years, and the students that we're putting out, the product that we're putting out. And that's not a knock on academicians, it's not a knock on the students, it's not a knock on the programs. It literally is just the construct of what we're currently in, and realistically it's why we started the podcast, right? Education was kind of broken. We wanted to help fix it. We don't know the answers, so let's get the experts on here to talk about how they think it could be fixed. What's the best thing we could take from each expert and really try to incorporate it into education, into healthcare, into business, into whatever it is that we want to do. How can we make this better? And so that's the first point that I think you kind of made. And we had talked with a couple of guests here now previously who had mentioned as well that they wish there was more business school involved, or business thinking at least involved in physical therapy education. And the problem with that is that physical therapy education is not there to be a business school. We talked about this often, how chiropractors get marketing classes with their schooling. So they're a little bit ahead of us in that, right? Well, the argument for physical therapy schools is that, look, we barely have enough time to teach the content to get them ready for the board exam. How are we going to fit in, elective courses? But I'm not just talking about business. I'm talking, like you said, yoga courses, Pilates courses, business courses. There's a couple of electives out there. We're seeing some more women's health. We're seeing some strength and conditioning. We're seeing sports. We're seeing electives coming up. The problem is you still can't touch all of them all the time. So if you take a women's health course, that may take away from you being able to take the business course.
That's a good point.
And if you take the business course, well, then maybe you can't take the sports course. It just, it's a finite amount of time we have in these PT programs, and it seems to be getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So, there's only so much you can cram into one little brain over the course of a period of time, right?
And I had no electives when I was in school. I had no choice. It was like, this is it.
Here it is.
I didn't get to take anything extra.
And again, right, it kind of goes back to that theory that, if you have a kid in sports and you specialize him in one sport early on for the rest of his life, it's not really a great outcome. We're finding now that, it's better to put him in a bunch of different things, let him try a bunch of different things, taste a bunch of different things, practice a bunch of different things. And that usually leads to a better, more well-rounded athlete. I think the same thing kind of goes for clinicians, for physical therapists, for business owners. You got to taste a bunch of things. You got to try a bunch of different things and dabble and just see what works and what you like and what your interests are.
Totally. I never never thought I would be a Pilates person because I didn't know what it was. And then all of a sudden, it was in my face, and there I was. And I decided, like, I can take this information, this $3,000 education that was a lot less expensive than my PT degree, and I could poo on it and think it was useless, or I could say, I can teach this to every one of my clients and create a loyal community that my people stick around for years and want to keep sticking around. They want to be there because it's not about pain, it's about wellness. So, and I do think wellness is probably much more taught in school now than it ever was. We didn't learn anything about wellness. But I will say this, I remember one specific thing from PT school, and I think this was our business lecture. It was one guy, 1 hour, and he was a home health PT who did he had a clinic that he worked in the morning, and he did home health in the afternoon. And all I remember about his lecture was that he ate his lunch in his car because he was running around crazy. And that was the takeaway about the business. He was a successful businessman that needed to eat his lunch in the car because he was so stressed going from this job to then home health all over. And I'm going, man, that's it. If that's the takeaway from this, and that was 1996 or 7, and like I don't remember a lot from back then, but I remember that was a total waste of time. It was a 100% waste of time, and that was my business education. Eat lunch in the car.
Yeah, man, it's crazy to see like how far we've come in just a short period of time. Yep. I mean, you know, the information's out there. There's a lot of people doing a lot of great things, giving a lot of great tips. And I've seen a lot of common themes this weekend. And Stephen, I just can't thank you enough for your time and for coming on the show today. Where can people reach out to you if they have follow-up questions, or they want to learn more about Pilates, or they just want to chat? Yeah,
on my Facebook personal page, Stephen Dunn, or the Facebook page I mentioned earlier, Facebook Pilates for PTs. My email address is sdunn, S-D-U-N-N, at therapyandpilates.com. And therapyandpilates.com is my actual business, my studio location, or studio web address, excuse me. So I can be reached out in any of those ways. Most people reach out to me these days through Facebook. That's become the Facebook Messenger, and through either the Facebook group or just through a personal message to me. And that's where most people are reaching out these days, and that's where most conversations start. I think that's where you and I started our conversation, was through some Facebook messaging. So,
well, Stephen, I can't thank you enough for your time. We appreciate you coming on, and I can't wait to see what you got coming down the road, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Thanks for your time, man. Have a good one, buddy.
Access to healthcare is one of the largest issues facing both providers and patients, as millions of people worldwide lack timely and affordable access to healthcare. Anywhere Healthcare, a telehealth platform, is a simple, low-cost option for providers and patients that eliminates the barriers to access to all kinds of healthcare. To find out more, check out anywhere.healthcare, which is available in our show notes. And if you use the code HET in all caps when you email to sign up, you'll save 25% off the total cost. Thank you for attending class today, and we hope that you learned something and gained value from the content.
If you'd like to schedule office hours with us, feel free to add us on Twitter at HET Podcast, on Instagram, HET Podcast, on Facebook, the Healthcare Education Transformation Podcast, and the homepage, healthcareeducationtransformationpodcast.com.
And for those of you following along in the syllabus, extra credit can be obtained by liking us, sharing us, and leaving a review.
Let's continue our journey up Mount Educational Success as lifelong learners.